So that's the deal. And then we had a quick question from Tommy Guns. We'll get more into this during the week, but honestly, I don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't
and
matter.
that's not flippant. I've always felt this way. I personally prefer more than 3 people up front, whether that's in a 3-5, sort of like the 5. What you're saying is a 5-2, be like a more of a 5-3, 5-2, but more like a 3-4 kind of thing with 2 stand-up guys, or a 4 down. What I don't like is when teams go 3-3 stack. I don't necessarily love that. Now, I am looking forward to watching some of Marcus Freeman's film against Navy from 2018 and then also against Army last year to see what they did. I just know, having coached in the triple option and against it, more often than not, when teams go with 3-3 stacks, it ends up not being super successful.
Right. This is the face of offensive coordinators in the triple option when they see a legit 3 front without the 2 hangers like you were talking about. If it's just 3 down and a 3-3 stack, that's fantastic because those offensive linemen are able to get to the second level so much faster. And triple option teams, all they want to do is 3 yards, 3 yards, 3. I mean, they don't. It's not necessarily. Yeah, you're going to bust those big plays and things like that because teams get out of whack defensively and they don't follow what they're supposed to do. But it's just meant to get 3-4 yards every time. And if you're going to give me 3 down and then 3 backers, I'm going to get that every time. Right. And so you lick your chops if that's the case. So yeah, I would not want to see that at all.
And we'll get more into the reasons why it's not good to be in that, and why it's better to be an aggressive front, and all that when we break Navy down on Wednesday. So we'll start that on Wednesday. Got a super chat here from Tatted Up Irishman. He goes, "Hey, Coach, watching live today with my grandpa. He wants to know if you ever had hope to coach Notre Dame. He thinks you would do a great job. Would you go if offered?" I mean, when I've talked about this in the past. I mean, when I was a kid, my dream wasn't to grow up and play in the NFL. My dream was to grow up and coach Notre Dame. I always wanted to be a football coach. Would I have loved to have coached Notre Dame someday? Absolutely. I mean, I'm a Notre Dame fan and I was a football coach. Of course, I would have loved to coach Notre Dame. It's not something I think about now. It's not something I've thought about a long time. Would I go if offered? Probably not. No, I wouldn't. And the reason is, number one, when my wife married me, I wasn't a football coach, and she did the coach's wife thing for a couple of years. And, that's a hard life, especially for someone who didn't sign up for it. So I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't have really any desire to get back into coaching. And the thing about it is, let's say I went to let's just say hypothetically, Brian Kelly offered me a job tomorrow and, hey, start 2022 season. And I took it. And Brian Kelly retires in 2 years and a new coach comes in and he wants a brand new staff. Then what do I tell my wife? Hey, I know that we talked about, living in Indiana and doing this job for a long time, but because I got back into coaching, and there's a new coach here.
Now we're moving.
Now we're moving, right? Or I'm just going to go run a website again, and criticize the coach who just replaced me and the rest of the staff.
Yeah.
There's nothing good that would come out of that. I also believe that if I ever pursued a job at Notre Dame and applied for a job at Notre Dame while in this capacity, like, did I apply for GA jobs back in the day when I was coaching? I'd be lying if I said no, right? Why wouldn't I? I sent GA applications out to everybody. That's what you do when you're young.
Yeah,
you're just trying to hope somebody gets gives you a conversation, a call. But would I ever even apply or consider or entertain that kind of offer now? No, I wouldn't, because it would be very difficult for me to accept that somebody's being objective when they pursued something, were rebuffed, and then were being critical of the people that rebuffed them. Because then it looks like, well, are you being critical of this coach because you wish you had his job? I have to deal with that crap from people anyway. It would be valid if I pursued an opportunity at Notre Dame and then didn't get it, so I would never do it, have no interest in it. I appreciate the sentiment, though. The fact that people think I could do a good job there, it means a lot to me. But no, I don't have any interest in doing that. But yeah, I think every Notre Dame fan, when they're a kid who wants to get into coaching, thinks about, gee, I'd love to coach Notre Dame. I'd love to have their coach. I tell you what, I wouldn't mind doing is if they wanted to just give me like the salary that those guys make now, I would love that. But I love what I'm doing. I really do. I like being my own boss. I love being able to talk Notre Dame. I love being able to do this on a daily basis. And I also love the fact that, as I've joked before, if Notre Dame loses, nobody's trying to fire me. So that's one of the biggest pluses of not being a coach anymore, because that's part of the job.
Your job description,
Yeah.
your job security is not in the hands of teenagers. I mean,
the era
so
of coaches
hard.
being at schools for 20 plus years or coaches being at schools for 20 plus years, it's gone. I mean, Gary Patterson's out at TCU. I mean, if anyone was ever going to be able to go out on his own terms, it should have been Gary Patterson at TCU.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I've heard he was part of the decision, but he was going to get fired if he didn't step away. So, I like what I do. I like what I do, and I'm happy where I am, but I appreciate the sentiment. We have another super chat here from Brian Medved. Thank you for the super chat, Brian. It says, hey, guys, who are some teams, stadiums you'd like to visit that we don't ever or rarely play? Who would be some teams you'd like to see in a New Year's Six game bowl this season? So
two big questions.
We'll answer the first one, and then we're going to use the second one, Brian. This is a perfect segue. Well done, Brian. Because there's really not a lot else to talk about from the press conference. It was
Agreed.
a normal, no news, just normal press conference. Who are some so I'll be honest with you, some of the places that I'd like to go to, Notre Dame has on their schedule moving forward. Notre Dame is going to play Texas A&M. I've always wanted to be at a game at Texas A&M. I've wanted to cover a game at the Shoe. They play Ohio State in a couple, next year, so I'll be there for that, hopefully. I've always wanted to cover a game at the Rose Bowl. I've always wanted to be, or I don't even know about cover game, just be at a Rose Bowl game, even if it's not Notre Dame. I've always wanted to go to Pasadena for a Rose Bowl game. And the interesting thing is, my first memory of a game in the Rose Bowl was actually an NFL game. It was the Broncos Giants Super Bowl in '86 against John Elway's first Super Bowl trip was 8, but it was paid in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl. So, but then just growing up in the Midwest, you fall in love with the Rose Bowl and the pageantry and all that type of thing. So, trying to think, I would love to watch a game at the Swamp. I would. The only other place I would have wanted to see a game is not there anymore, and it's the Orange Bowl, like the actual Orange Bowl.
Right. Not
even though I heard it was a dump, I would have loved to have it's still the Orange Bowl. I mean, because for me, it's about the iconic nature of it. Like, okay, like the Coliseum is now, it's a dump now. But the first time I covered a game there, Vince, was 2014 was my first trip there. And I'm standing on the field after the game, and I'm thinking of all the iconic things that have happened here from Notre Dame games, but the 84 Olympics were in this place. The first Super Bowl ever between the Packers and Raiders was in the Coliseum. You think of all the Raider, the great Raider runs when the Raiders were actually in LA. You think of the history, and that's kind of the thing for me that I really like. I mean, Alabama, I have zero desire to ever be at a game at LSU. There's some places I have like that just because I heard how their fans are. But I mean, most of the places I'd ever want to watch a game at, I've already been to just to cover games. But Texas A&M, Alabama, and Florida and Ohio State are four that Penn State. That's one. Again, I'd also like to watch Penn State get beat there. That would even be more fun. But that's a I like those big, cool, classic stadiums. That's just my 2 cents. What about you, Vince?
No, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with you on some of those. I think the Swamp would be a fun place to go. I thought the Coliseum,
which again is also on Notre Dame's future schedule.
Yeah, that's true. The Coliseum, I've just heard so many negative things about the Coliseum and how just what a dump it is. That I don't know that I want to go there. But A&M, I think that's a good one. That's not one I would have thought about on my own. The 12th man and all the stuff that they have going on there. I think that would be a really cool environment. There's a few SEC, type environments I'd like to, because I always hear, how amazing the SEC is and the atmosphere and all that. I would like to, like Georgia. I would like to,
Georgia's pretty cool.
Ole Miss maybe just because of I would like to see that just to see what the hullabaloo is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, honestly, I would love to see some of these new multi-billion-dollar NFL stadiums just because it's the opposite of everything, of all the teams that I follow, right? Like, I would have loved to go to Fenway to watch Notre Dame play there, right?
Yeah, that was
because
pretty cool.
I would have loved to go to that
Yeah.
game. Okay, for example, but like I follow the Cubs, Wrigley.
Yeah.
It's the second oldest stadium in the Notre Dame. They're still playing in their stadium.
Would
from
our
the 30s.
friendship end if Notre Dame played at Wrigley and I didn't let you go cover the game?
It wouldn't. It would take a severe hit.
Okay.
just being honest with you on that one.
Yeah, understandably so. Understandably so.
Like the Vegas game next year, like that would be I think that would be a cool because I just want to like the opulence.
You're going to that one. We've already
Right.
talked about that.
The
one,
opulence of like Vegas and then like the new stadium in LA. Like I want to see what that is all about too.
I actually don't like the new NFL stadiums that I've been to so far to cover games. I don't. And usually partly that's because the media gets put like in the corner.
Right.
Like,
yeah, good point.
Nobody puts baby in the corner. Yes, they do. NFL teams do it all the time, and the Vegas one, but the Vegas one will be cool just to say you play another Lambeau Field. That's one I forgot about.
I was really looking forward to that trip last year.
I'm hoping they still do that again.
I think they're planning on it, but I don't know that for a fact.
Like 2026 or 2027 or something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's
I'm sure it'll be here before.
And it's one of the reasons I'm still mad at myself. I didn't get to go to Oklahoma in 2012. I've always wanted to watch a game at Oklahoma, but I've been to Texas. I was at Darrell Royal Stadium in 2016. Been at Clemson's a great place to watch a game. For me, Vince, you know what it's more about? For me, and I absolutely love this question because I love college football. For me, it's not so much about being at stadiums. I want to be at I want to be at an Iron Bowl someday.
Sure.
I want to be at a Michigan-Ohio State game someday. I want to be at a Texas. I want to be at the Red River Shootout. I'm sorry, it's still the Red River Shootout.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I would like. I would love to be, even though I'd have to go to California to do it. I would love to be at a USC UCLA game in the Rose Bowl. Not in the Coliseum, but in the Rose Bowl.
I think it's cool that they both wear their home jerseys now.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's pretty sweet, to be honest with you. Yeah, I like that.
So those are more of the things I would rather see are those type of games. I've been to the Jacksonville Stadium before. It would be cool to be there to watch a Georgia-Florida game, right? Those are more the things I care more about than specifically stadiums, but there are still some cool stadiums. So I'd like to see certain stadiums for a game that means something. That's why I was more excited about watching Notre Dame play at Lambeau than just going to a Packer game.
I would have a hard time going to a Packer
Green
game.
Bay's not that far away. I mean, we could do a trip there, but it's just like I don't really care to watch the Packers there,
Right,
but
exactly.
I would love to watch because I'm more of a college football guy. But to see that with a Notre Dame game would be pretty awesome.
Agreed.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah. I've got There's something I want to talk to you about later about the future. Remind me.
Just we'll get into that. We have another super chat from Mike Lane. Thanks for that, Mike. You guys are a permanent fixture in my AirPods. I appreciate your insight and drama-free podcast. Not all Irish fans make that easy. Go Irish. Thank you for that, Mike. Thank you for that very, very much.
I love it. That's awesome.
It's funny, some of the responses I get from people about that listen to our show. I've had two wives tell me that they have to listen to us all the time. One wife told me, she goes, "Yeah, I go to." This was her opening conversation to me. I go to bed to your voice every night. Excuse me. Yeah, when I go to bed, my husband's always playing you guys' podcast. Like, okay, that makes more sense.
That makes a lot more sense. Thank you for clarifying.
But I love it. But that's been the cool thing about the tailgates is you meet these parents, right? They bring their kids to the tailgate.
Yeah,
and then the kids are like, hey. My kids listen to you. My kids know your voice. It's just, it's really cool to just to think about that. And that's what makes this community so much fun. But thank you so much for that super chat, Mike. Got a couple more here before we dive into the bowl matchups. Matt Baisley, thank you for the super chat. I was at OU. We took over the stadium, went with my best friend who was a diehard OU fan. OU started fast, and friend said have to stay the whole game. We did.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Yeah, because if you remember, Oklahoma was driving that first drive, and then that snap over the quarterback's head just completely crushed that drive, and then they didn't do a whole lot after that.
Right.
And then Lucas Chapman, where do you see Notre Dame as a team by the end of the year? If the run game O-line keeps improving, the team will be hard to beat. Long way to go. But I think this, and then the question from Brian
about the matchups.
Who would you like to see in the New Year's Six? I think these two things are really ideal segues for what we've seen so far from bowl games. So the two that we're seeing now, bowl matchups today, for example, I looked at CBS Sports, ESPN, and Brett McMurphy at the Action Network, and his are.
Okay.
I just kind of like to read his because I just kind of like to laugh at Brett McMurphy. But they were either Peach Bowl or Fiesta Bowl. Most ESPN and CBS all had Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, which I've been to a Fiesta Bowl. I actually got to cover the Ohio State Notre Dame game after the 2015 season. The opponents are interesting.
Okay.
I've seen Wake Forest. I've seen in the Fiesta Bowl, I've seen Wake Forest. I've seen Kentucky today, and I saw Oklahoma State. And, to me, Vince, here's the question that I have, and I want to know from Notre Dame fans. I want you all to let us know. There's a lot of talk about how Notre Dame needs to win a big New Year's Six bowl. They need to get that big bowl game mantra off their back, which I understand. 0-8 since the Cotton Bowl after the 93 season. They beat Texas A&M 24-21 after the 93 season. That's the last time Notre Dame won a major bowl, which is the Cotton, Fiesta, Rose, Orange, Sugar, and Peach, right? They haven't won one of those. They're 0-8 in those. So, yes, I would love for them to win a major bowl, but honestly, I care more about beating LSU in the Champ Sports Bowl or Camping World Bowl than I do about beating Wake Forest in the Fiesta Bowl or
that's
Kentucky
a really
in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah,
I don't think beating
Kentucky
off. Right. I feel like young people care more about who you beat than where you beat them. Meaning, if they played Alabama in the Cheez-It Bowl, that would have a lot more impact on Notre Dame than playing Kentucky in the Fiesta Bowl.
Right.
So let's say Notre Dame plays Kentucky or Oklahoma State or Wake Forest. I think Notre Dame fans would just love. I think for me, it's just let's just get that big bowl game off our back is kind of the thought that people have, which I completely understand.
I get that
but
too.
From a national media perspective, they're not going to give Notre Dame credit for winning a major bowl if they beat Kentucky, Oklahoma State, or Wake Forest,
or like a Power Five or like non-Power Five if they get matched up with whoever that happens to be. Right. I mean, it's not going to happen. They're not going to.
Only exception would be as if they get a big bowl game rematch against Cincinnati.
Yeah,
that'd be the only exception because then you rematch and payback and all that. That would get a little bit of love and but then if you beat them, it's like, well, they're not that good.
Well, they're not Power Five, so whatever. That's what you would hear. I mean,
Absolutely
that's what
they're so predictable.
Yeah,
they're so predictable.
No doubt about it.
So that's my question that I want to ask Notre Dame fans is: Would you rather beat a name school by name? I mean, Oklahoma, Michigan, Penn State, Texas, LSU, did I say Penn State already? Florida, Georgia, a team like that in a non-major bowl, or would you rather beat a team like Kentucky, Wake Forest, or Oklahoma State in a major bowl? That's
that's a really tough question for me because if they're in a non-New Year's Six bowl, that means they've lost another game. To me, I mean, that means they're going to lose another game. They're going to be 10-2, and that's going to be pretty disappointing for me based on who's left on the schedule.
Right.
So that means they probably lose to Virginia, let's say. So now they're 10-2, and they would have the opportunity to play a 2-loss Michigan team, for example, potentially. Right. That matchup is better. But I'm already disappointed in the season because they're 10-2. So I don't know. It's a really hard question.
Well, the way I was looking at it is more of like, let's just say hypothetically that they don't make it. Let's say that there's a couple one-loss, whatever. But yeah, it's a tough one. We have a couple people that have kind of have already. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of this. Rob Thidoff says, I want a major bowl win. We can't help who we play, and I want the monkey somewhat off our back.
And I get that.
Yep. Go Irish says Wake Forest, UK, and Oklahoma State don't excite me whatsoever. I'd love to see a Cincinnati rematch, Michigan or Oregon. So he cares more about
the name,
the opponent. Now, the ideal scenario is a major bowl against an Oregon, a Michigan,
no question,
right? That kind of program. Brian Dembo wants a blue blood, and Matt D wants a blue blood. So does TJ. But then we kind of get into Matt Baisley, big game, but then John Keevers, it's New Year's Six, no question, against whoever. Based Zoomer says Major Bowl. So we have a lot of this back and forth, and I think that to me that makes this an interesting conversation. Is
Yeah.
do you care
Mace
more
has
about the yeah May say K? I'd rather be the name school. Those are the programs we are recruiting against. No one cares about Oklahoma State, and that's my thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that.
Because that's the dichotomy here, Vince. It's either A, you're looking at it from your perspective as a fan, which is totally fine. There's not a wrong answer here, right? This is what makes it fun. We're talking sports, right?
Absolutely.
There's I just want to get that there because I think a lot of fans look at it as like we've got this monkey on our back, but it's also the perception. Well, they haven't won a major because like ESPN says it hasn't won a major bowl game since 1994. Well, they can't say that anymore if you win the Fiesta Bowl over Kentucky. Right. So they can not give you credit, but they can't use that against you anymore. Right. But then there's the other part where Mace is looking at it saying, but what does beating Kentucky do for your recruiting? Because recruits, oh, wow, but they won the Fiesta Bowl. They don't care because you have to understand that the young people have grown up in an era where bowls don't mean anything unless it's a playoff game.
They don't.
Sad. That's sad truth.
True. Yeah.
It's sad truth. And I hate that. And I wish college football would do something about it.
I mean, New Year's Six, we can all talk about how we want to be in a New Year's Six, et cetera, et cetera. But that's just because of the name of it and the money that's handed out.
And because how we grew up viewing bowls.
Exactly.
I wish college football and the NCAA would do something about that and bring meaning back to those games, but they don't. I mean, they're not, because it's all about money now. It's not about tradition and the pageantry and all that. It's just about money.
Right.
So that's why, to me, it's about the name.
Interesting take here. It's from Sean. He says, I want a unique team that wouldn't be a normal for Notre Dame to play.
Yeah, so he's not thinking like Michigan. It'd be something like Oregon.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Something like that. Yeah, that's going to be let's see here. Logan Gagne says there's projections of playing Michigan in the Fiesta according to Stuart Mandel, so could have both. That would be an ideal type of thing, is to get a big name like that. I don't really put a lot of stock in what Stuart Mandel says, but I would like that. I would like that. Absolutely.
It's going to be interesting to see where Michigan falls, because I would project, obviously they've already lost to Michigan State, which we'll talk about here in a minute, but they are probably going to lose to Ohio State. So they're going to be 10-2. They're not going to be in the Big Ten championship. So where do they fall as far as the bowl rankings are concerned, right? I mean, it's going to be, the next few weeks are obviously going to tell us a lot, depending on how Michigan State does against Ohio State and, you know, what that Big Ten championship looks like and things of that nature. But Michigan might be the fourth best Big Ten team when it's all said and done. So if that's the case, then they're not going to make a New Year's Six.
Right.
But
yeah, because they've got one loss now, but they still have to play at Penn State, at Maryland, and home against Ohio State. Right. And that's what's going to make this final month of the season is going to be a lot of fun in college football.
Yes,
there's still so many big games left. We have another one from A. Murphy. He goes, heck, at this point, I don't know which person is A. Murphy in the picture. So A. Murphy says, heck, at this point, I just want, because I don't want to say he, and then it's like, wait a minute, my husband's not on here. This is me. Right. But heck, at this point, I just want them to win a major bowl game, period. And Matt D says playoff for New Year's Six, a win. I get it. Richard Wagner takes a different perspective. Wake Forest unbeaten would be a great game and win. A great game. I see. Here's the thing. I think we could be able to look at it and appreciate it as Notre Dame fans. I think beating Wake first of all, an unbeaten Wake Forest team is not playing in the Fiesta Bowl because it's not a playoff game. Okay, if Wake Forest goes 13-0, they're going to be in the college football playoff. Okay. But for me, if let's say they lose to Clemson late, all right, really good game, they still go on to win the ACC championship. I think beating Wake Forest I think it'd be a fun game. It'd be a great game to cover. It's just not going to be a needle moving game. Doesn't move your needle perception wise. It doesn't move the needle recruiting wise. What it would do for Notre Dame fans, which I think a lot care about, and I get it. Trust me, I get it. Because I have this struggle myself, and my opinion changes from moment to moment. It really does. Because like I said, there's not a wrong answer. It's just, but when I look at it from a recruiting standpoint, what actually helps the program, I don't care where, unless you play Wake Forest in how about Muhlenberg in the Pinstripe Bowl? I would hope Notre Dame would win that one convincingly. I think they could do that one.
I had to throw that one
Yeah, that would be although it'd be home field advantage for Muhlenberg because Allentown's not that far from New York City. But yeah,
I thought you get a chuckle out of that
yeah,
one.
that was good. That was really good. But that's the thing is just you want something that's going to move the needle as a program is kind of usually where I fall on this one. But again, I always kind of fall back to I make these really great arguments why it's better to play a big name team in a smaller bowl, and then on the back of my mind is like 0-8 in major bowls, 0-8 in major bowl, and
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
like I'm tired of hearing that. I'm tired of hearing that. I'd like to get that off my chest.
Agreed.
Read that one, Vince.
Yeah, Irishman 7114 says, I would love to beat a big name school. The problem is, if we win a major bowl against a not major opponent, it's, quote, they didn't play anyone, unquote. If they beat a good team in a bad bowl, so-and-so wasn't that good. Bingo.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely correct. I agree with you 100%. That's absolutely going to be the narrative because however they can negatively spin. Because remember all the buildup a couple of years ago when Notre Dame was going to play Iowa State. It's the up-and-comers and Matt Campbell and this, that, and the other. And it was and then Notre Dame blew them out. It was like, well, it was just Iowa State.
Right.
No
well, and MGO Irish has that. He makes that comment. He says, was anyone excited when Notre Dame beat Iowa State or Rutgers in bowl games? There rests your answer. Notre Dame craves the biggest stage possible. So do I. I understand what he's saying here, but I don't think those analogies work because we're not talking about beating Wake Forest or Kentucky in the Insight.com Bowl. Right. We're talking about playing them. I mean, with all due respect, if Notre Dame played Iowa State in the Fiesta Bowl, that'd be a much bigger moment because, number one, Iowa State would have been a much better team. Notre Dame beat a 7-5 Iowa State team. I think Rutgers was 6-6 or 7-5 when Notre Dame beat them in 2000. What was it, after the 2014 season? No, it was after the 2013 season. And so I think that's a different. They were 6. Rutgers finished that year 6-7 after they lost to Notre Dame. But you know what was considered a big game? When Notre Dame played Florida State in the Champ Sports Bowl, and when Notre Dame played Miami in the Sun Bowl. I remember covering the team. That was my first full year covering Notre Dame. Was 2010. And I'd cover recruiting for a few years, like analysis wise, but I'd never covered the team until that year. And I remember talking to recruits after Notre Dame beat Miami, and they were like, "Man, that game moved them." I remember talking to a couple Notre Dame coaches who always gave me good information, like truthful information. And they were like, we had kids that dropped us months ago calling us to see if we had room after this freaking Sun Bowl against Miami because it's Miami. And remember, that wasn't even a good Miami team. They had just fired their coach. I remember Al Golden getting interviewed during the game on the broadcast because I remember watching that game. My wife and I were in a hotel in Alabama on our way driving down to Texas for the Army All-American game. And that was a game that first started getting Aaron Lynch's attention about Notre Dame again. So it was a name opponent. So I don't think that right there, and go Irish, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think that option's not on the table because we're not talking about playing one of those teams in a bad game, right? Some bowl that doesn't matter. We're talking about playing them in the Rose Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Peach Bowl, something like that. And I think that would be a bigger question for me. That's what I think is more in general.
One more comment I want to throw up here.
Yeah, go ahead.
From Chief Brody. He says, listen, if Notre Dame can sneak in the playoff and get blown out, I still want that. 3 out of 4 years in the playoff puts you in elite company. What do you think about that?
We'll discuss that more tomorrow. But I think my initial feeling is I always want that shot. Yes. I would always much rather have that shot at it. Now, if you could predict the future and say, I know it's going to be a blowout, I'd say, okay, go to the Fiesta Bowl and win.
Yeah.
Right. And I get what he's saying. 3 out of 4 years put you in elite company, but that's not going to be the spin. That's not going to be the perception. That's not going to be what.
Right. You can say that, but that's not going to be the spin. We can say
it's like Buffalo Bills fans can say all they want. It's like I remember when I was growing up, like it used to drive me nuts because I was a John Elway and a Broncos fan. Well, John Elway's a big loser. I mean, what? Guy's won 3 AFC championships. Yeah, but he always loses in Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl. It means he's the second. You're the second best team in the league. But that's how people are. If you lose your last game, you're a loser. Right. And exactly. I hate that. Like the Buffalo Bill, the achievement that the early 90s Buffalo Bills teams made to get into 4 straight Super Bowls is a tremendous, tremendous accomplishment. but yet they're considered losers because they lost them all.
Right.
That's insane to me, but that's the perception. And so you look at Notre Dame getting in there. If you're going to tell me they're going to get in and play Alabama or Oklahoma and get blown out, and I know the future, I would rather go beat Kentucky in the Fiesta Bowl because I still believe winning that game is better than getting destroyed.
Yeah.
If you're going to tell me which would you choose and not give me the option of a prediction of the game, I'm always going to take the playoff because I always want that chance for a championship. So I hope I answered that. I mean, that's how I view
get that.
It. If I know you're going to get blown out, then I don't want that. Why would I want that? You know. And that's how I look at it. Vince, what's your thoughts on that?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And you're right. If Notre Dame has a chance to get into like at the beginning of the year, the way Notre Dame was playing and they were undefeated at the time before they played Cincinnati, I was thinking to myself, God bless America. I don't want to be in the playoff because it's just not going to go well.
Yes.
Like you don't have to tell me that they're going to get blown out because I can already see that that's going to happen. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as Notre Dame continues to get better and they get an offense that gets better and I'm seeing some signs that this team can compete, especially this season. I'm taking the shot in the Final Four. If Notre Dame can somehow sneak in, I want that shot because I'm not sure that there's 4 teams that are better than Notre Dame on any given Saturday, to be honest. I'm not talking about – I said 4. I realize Georgia's really, really good, and I get that, okay? For this conversation,
they're the best team in the country this year, yes.
Correct. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
But I would love to give Notre Dame a shot against anybody else in that first game.
They still have to continue improving, but if they can continue ascending from where they are now, yes, I would say that's true. I would agree. People are freaking out about the defense on Saturday night, and my whole thing is the defense played a bad game and still held North Carolina below their season scoring average.
Right.
You know what I mean?
When you take a step back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mark. Hey, let's not forget that with all due respect, Clark Lee gave up 45 points to a Michigan team that wasn't nearly as good offensively as what North Carolina is.
Sure.
They gave up 45 points to an offense that was led by Shea Patterson. All right. Teams have bad days. It happens.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
Last year, you look at Alabama, the team that won the title last year. They gave up 48 points to Ole Miss. Right. It happens. It's part of the game. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State.
Shot. I would love to see Marcus Freeman on a big stage. I would love to see this offense if they continue to ascend, and that is a big if, right? I mean, we've seen it the last couple of weeks, and we think that it's going to continue. Right. But if that happens over the next 4 weeks or so, I would love to give Notre Dame a shot. I would, and that's not a homer talking because a month ago I'd say, I want anything but the playoff at this point. But now I'm seeing some signs, and I would be excited for that matchup.
Right. Well, and let's not forget too that Alabama gave up 40. I forgot about this. They gave up 40 points, over 40 points twice last year. Also gave up over 40 to Florida. They gave up over 40 points twice the year before, including once to Auburn. I mean, they gave up 40 to LSU, but I mean, everyone not named Auburn gave up over 40 to LSU that year. So that's not really something to like, well, yeah, of course you gave up 40 to LSU.
Yeah.
They scored 40 on everybody that year. But yeah, D-Rock had an interest. I mean, I get this sentiment. I do. He says, regardless of who we play, the media won't give Notre Dame the credit anyway. So win a major bowl and the monkey goes away. I get that. But I guess what I would say if they're not going to give you any credit, is the monkey really gone? Or does it just turn into, well, they're 1-8 in the last 9 major bowl games. So to me, that's why I always care more about what is best for the program. And usually that's about what's going to impact recruits a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess but it's a fun discussion. And I love the fact that there's so many different points of view. And even people that come down to the same side come down on it for different reasons.
Yeah, right.
Which makes it even more fun to discuss. And again, if we did this show again tomorrow, I probably would have a different opinion. Like I honestly am back and forth on this about which one's better. And at the end of the day, I don't think there is a better. As long as it's a win, I don't know if one is necessarily better than the other.
Yeah.
I mean, because I may say I want a big name, but then it'd be nice to kind of go cover the Fiesta Bowl and be like, you know what? They got a Fiesta Bowl win. Fiesta Bowl champs. They'll make those shirts, Fiesta Bowl champs and all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
And I'm also a big proponent of Notre Dame finishing the season with a win. I've said this before. Notre Dame had more positive offseason momentum going into the post 2014 season when they went 8-5 than they did a year later when they went 11-3 or 10-3 and lost to 3 top 5 opponents. They went into that postseason with a little bit of a because they had lost their last 2 games.
Right.
Yet they lost 4 of their last 5 in 2014, but because their last game was a win over a team that people, an LSU team, and LSU wasn't good that year, but it was still LSU. They went into that offseason with a lot of momentum, and that carried over into the 2015 season, where the post-2015 season carried into a 4-8 season. So I do think that matters. Again, in a game that is so driven by psyche, that stuff matters. Going into an entire offseason with a loss can be challenging unless it's like a loss like Clemson had in 2015, where you lose to Bama in the title game, but man, you just feel like, boy, we were close. I think that would be the only kind of loss. Like if you were to tell me, would you rather go to the Fiesta Bowl and beat Oklahoma or go to the New Year's Six game and play Alabama into overtime and lose in overtime? I'd say take the Bama loss in overtime. And I know that sounds crazy, but I feel like that would do more for look how close we are than beating an Oklahoma in just a bowl game after Oklahoma lost the regular season game. That's kind of my 2 cents.